One of the things I love best about this Indie Reads Aloud podcast is the diversity of authors that we have on the program. Bradley Poore, who is coming today to read us his children's book, he also writes short stories for grown-ups. So this is a really cool thing, Bradley. I'm so happy that you're back, and I'm happy that you're sharing your multiple genres with us. Um, I personally, I think that your short stories for grown-ups can also be for preteens and teens, but
Sure.
that's just me. But I'm really excited about this children's book. I got to hold it and read it for myself the other day, and I was so impressed with this story and the artwork. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really proud of how it turned out. This is a story that I've had since my mid 20s, probably, which is more than 20 years ago, which is probably coming up on 25 years now. And I just helping a friend. I put this at the end of the book, helping a friend do some painting at his house. I had the idea for the name. I thought it came out the tongue really well. I thought
Yeah.
Opera Andy sounded really good, and then within just a few minutes, just thinking as I painted, I just sort of outlined this story in my head, and it's something that I've had knocking around for a long time. And after I wrote my first book, I decided to just I needed to do it. I needed to get, it out and see how it turned out. And yeah, I'm super proud. It turned out really well. And yeah, I
It
mean,
really did.
finding somebody like Phelan to do the artwork was amazing. And yeah, she does some beautiful work.
Yeah, it's incredible. For those of you who didn't catch Bradley's earlier podcast episode, he is the author of A Journey to the Middle: How I Embraced Mediocrity and Failed to Turn My Old Vacuum into a Rocket Ship. I love the subtitle on that one. That's just
It's long.
fantastic. It's so
It's
great,
long.
though. It's so great. He also wrote Men of War, a second collection of short stories and essays. Bradley is considered by many to be a fool's fool. Okay,
For sure.
I don't subscribe to. I don't agree. With very little knowledge or understanding of how the world works. We had an extensive conversation, and I think you need to eradicate this sentence from your bio because
I
truly it's not accurate.
it's just for fun. It's just for fun.
Bradley loves waffle fries, chainsaw sculptures, traveling by train, and the Amish. Bradley lives in Ann Arbor with his family. And
I do indeed.
how cool that you're like Michigan organic. I just love that. It's so neat. The book you're going to read from today is Opera Andy, which is a children's book. It's
Mhm.
probably, I would say, pre-K to like third grade. Is that an accurate audience?
I think so. I think when I sort of started looking at the children's genre and tried to figure out, right, because they do, I mean, you sort of said it, right? You can't really say, or most people don't say K through 12 or K through 8. I mean, there are a lot of the windows are sometimes much more narrower.
Sure.
And so once I had the story finished and was able to compare, because I have a young child to the stacks of books that we have at the house, I thought 4 to 8 was
Yeah.
probably good, right? So, kindergarten through third, young fives through third, or, around there. My daughter's in fifth now. She's a little obviously old for it. Her reading is sort of a little bit more advanced, but yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty accurate. 4 to 8 is kind of what I was shooting for.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, for younger children, we can read out loud to them and they'll still really enjoy it. And the art is so fantastic. I would love for you to tell us about the artist for this book.
So I spent a lot of time looking for just the right sort of aesthetic, the right what fit in my head vision wise, right? That's very difficult, right?
Yeah,
I knew that I wanted something non-computer generated. Now, there's nothing wrong with computer generated artwork, and I have friends who are illustrators who do magnificent work that I could never hope to understand or do.
sure, sure.
But I wanted something a little more practical, right? I wanted this to be done by hand. which I knew would take a lot longer, but I thought in the end I would be much happier. I found Phelan Harris is her name. She's an artist in Arizona. I found her online after sort of an extensive search. I had several illustrators lined up and asked them to create a page for me.
Mm-hmm.
Some I gave the cover, my terrible stick person drawing cover to.
Yeah.
Some I gave, one of the interior pages and said, please sketch this out. I will pay you for your time. I want to see how you see my story and my vision via my little tiny, stick figures. And I was blown away by her work. Not that the others didn't turn in really good work, but I knew it when I saw it.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's kind of like that love at first sight thing that we
mhm.
have with people. There's just a connection that you go, yeah, this is how I was imagining a story in my head.
Yeah, it's amazing. I didn't know what to expect, not having done this before and having, spent a lot of time, talking to illustrators or throwing ideas at them and see what they came back to me with. But it was a wonderful process at the end of the day. She was really good. She thanked me for giving her my terrible stick figure drawings because it gave her an idea, right, of what
Right.
I was looking for.
Kind of like a
But
reference point to jump from. Yeah,
absolutely. And
yeah.
so other than that, I steered her very little. I let her know that she was free to be an artist, free to be the illustrator that she, wanted to be, the work that she wanted to put in. She added some things in the book which were really neat and really interesting. I gave her free reign for the most part because I
Mhm.
trusted her and I knew that she had done such good work. And she'd never illustrated a children's book before. This is not something she had done. She was a watercolor artist and is
Okay.
a watercolor artist. And so I trusted her.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
glad that I did at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And
At
she
the
put a
end
lot of neat little things in the book.
the end result product is just so cute. There's some really amazing little tiny details that just really finish off the book and really
Yeah.
make it special. So, for those of you listening and watching the podcast today on YouTube, we're going to show you the book as Bradley reads it. So, watch with your children the artwork and the little pieces that you find in it. Go back and watch it a second and third time because I promise you there are little things that you won't notice first time through, and
Yeah.
they're just delightful. When you are ready, Bradley, please take the screen, take the microphone, and read aloud.
Will do. Let me take it over. Take that and let me know when you can see it. Okay.
Yep, all set.
Uh, yep. So this is the cover. This is the cover art. I have the originals from Phelan as well, and so I have this. I actually have it on my wall. You just can't see it here in my office around the corner. These are sort of held under lock and key, and I am so grateful that she sent me the originals.
Yeah, absolutely. Having the original art is amazing.
Yeah, it is really great. So yep. So this is Opera Andy, and I know it's a children's picture book. There's not a ton to go through, but I will go through it and I will try not to add too much as I go through. So it starts off. Andy lives in a big city. In the book, this is landscaped over 2 pages, which can be great and not so great. But when Andy gets home, his family is always happy to see him. That is Ben on the left and Max on the right. It's two cats. Andy goes to change out of his work clothes. He has a concert to perform. Andy has the best fans. Andy is singing an aria from Mozart's opera, The Marriage of Figaro. In English, Andy is singing 5, 10, 20, 30, 36, 43. My Italian is not magnificent, but it would start cinque, dieci, venti. There's sort of pauses in between there. While Andy cooks dinner, he sings. He's singing Si mio core. Andy is singing in Italian, Si mio core. In English, that's Yes, my dear. Ben and Max are patiently waiting for their dinner too. Very hungry. One day on his way to work, Andy sees something very exciting. There are opera auditions being held tomorrow at the theater. He has always dreamed about seeing his name in lights. He goes to work and starts practicing. At first, Andy's friends at work aren't sure what he is doing. Andy is singing, Hurry up! In Italian, it is Fa presto. His coworker says, Huh? After work that night, he practices some more. Andy puts on another great show for Ben and Max. He feels ready for his audition the next morning. That night, while he sleeps, he dreams of the theater, and Ben and Max dream too. Andy's nervous when he gets up the next morning. What if he isn't good enough? Andy says goodbye to Ben and Max and heads off to the theater. There is a long line. Andy is not alone in his dream of becoming an opera singer. Andy is amazed by how good everyone is. Andy sings his favorite aria from Mozart, The Marriage of Figaro. As an explanation, a song sung by one person in an opera is called an aria. If sung by two people, it's a duet. And Ben and Max are ready to greet Andy when he gets home. They're very happy to see him. Andy tells Ben and Max all about his audition, how many people were in line, how great everyone sang, and that he did his best. On Monday, Andy goes back to work. His coworkers are excited to hear how the audition went. But no one from the theater called. So just like he has always done, he goes to the park and feeds the horses. Just like before, Andy goes to work in the big city. He still puts on concerts for his biggest fans, Ben and Max. Then one day, Andy realizes he did live out his dream when he worked up the courage to audition for the opera. He did his best. He is proud. Ben and Max are still there to greet Andy every day when he gets home from work. They're proud of him too. To Ben and Max, Andy is the best opera singer in the world. If only Andy's neighbors felt the same way. Stomp, stomp, knock, knock. Andy, it's late, they yell. And that is the end. And this is the author page that everyone gets a kick out of. A watercolor picture of me, the artist, Phelan Harris, and that is Mozart as a young boy on the right. And it goes on to say, this is my first children's book, that I had this idea of while helping my friend paint his kitchen. And then I have three cats, Douglas, Fred, and George. Phelan is an artist working in Arizona. She has a cat named Magat, which is from a fantasy story. And she likes Chopin. And then I give some information about Mozart, The Marriage of Figaro, which was first shown in Vienna in 1786. And he was 5 when he started writing music, and 11 when his first full opera was performed.
That's a
That's it.
spectacular book. Okay. I would really love it if you could go back to
Hmm.
the picture with the mouse and the telephone.
Yes, this one.
This is one of my favorite pictures. And I love this so much because of the little expression on the mouse's face. He just looks so excited waiting for that phone to ring. It's a
Hmm.
great picture. And then if you could jump to when he is performing for all of the neighborhood animals.
Ah, yes. So that's
This is another
oh, it's
one of my
after
favorite pictures because the details of the little animals in the window are just so darn cute.
it. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
really love this. Phelan did such a beautiful job with this artwork. It's really
She
pretty.
did. Really, the only thing that had changed in the story, and it had changed after I met her and spoke with her about the project. The only thing that has changed from my original vision was that originally I had an apartment full of animals, right? And so the dogs and cats and birds and whatever that you might keep in an apartment in New York City.
Right,
And
right.
so after some talking back and forth between she and I decided to sort of go down to two cats. And so because she knew that that was sort of my original vision, I didn't tell her, I didn't instruct her to do that things like this. And so this is one of the things that she took it upon herself to add later in the story. And there's sometimes you can see a little bird in a
Okay.
window sitting earlier on, but yeah, it's super neat. It's super neat.
I just think it's so great when we give, and this is Charlie coming up to see. But I just think it's so great when we can work in concert with our illustrators to create a vision that maybe as an author you didn't really know might happen. You know, we don't know how a children's book is going to turn out until we see the finished art and how the words
Hmm.
and the pictures go together. We have
Hmm.
this hope of how it's all going to fit together, but when it actually comes out as we imagine or sometimes better than we imagine, I think it's a really cool thing to have happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, as sort of as you maybe go through it a second time, you will notice little fun things about, there are pictures in his apartment have some significance, and there are magnets on his refrigerator, and he's got a funny saying on his apron while he's cooking dinner, and this is all sort of right neat stuff that you kind of sprinkle in
Yeah,
through
yeah.
the
Well,
book.
what's great about that is that they're little things that your artist comes up with to enhance the work, and it marries to the story so beautifully.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's really great. Do you have any more ideas for children's books down the road?
I do. I have an outline for a novel that I wanted to start. This is really my main focus at the moment is sort of getting Opera Andy out into the world and promoting Opera Andy. But I have recently wrote or started to write a bit of an outline for another children's book. This is a one and sort of done for me, right? Like
Hmm.
Andy's story is this, and this is sort of the beginning and the end of it. And I didn't, excuse me, I didn't have any plans to write a second or, make it any sort of, trilogy or anything like that. This is just a one off. Um, but I did have another idea for a children's book, and it's not done. And
Hmm.
so I think when the outline is done, I may look for a illustrator, but it's really got a different feel than this. So
Yeah,
um, I think I probably will, but it's down the road a little bit.
sure.
As with all things, when we're authors, we have ideas to,
We have too
you know,
many ideas.
we do, and not enough time, and not
Not
enough
enough
time.
time. Not enough time. So tell us just real briefly for the moms and dads and aunts and uncles listening, about your short story collections. We kind of touched on the titles of those, but I just want you to mention them a little bit so that people can find them because I think they're just wonderful.
Yeah, so no problem. So Journey to the Middle was my first collection of short stories. A lot of it is I'd say nonfiction. There were stories from, my childhood and my teenage years and growing up that I just kind of wanted to write down and that I thought other people might find interesting. Men of War is much different. It's a lot more fiction there are stories in there that excuse me, that are nonfiction wrapped in a little bit of fiction. It's a little bit of both. And so Men of War is really all over the place, while A Journey to the Middle. So the long title from A Journey to the Middle about the rocket ship and the vacuum cleaner is that I had promised to my family for years that I would turn our old vacuum cleaner into a rocket ship. And and we just sort of joked about it for several years, and I thought it was kind of an interesting story of someone trying to do that. And so there's
Mhm.
this fiction story in the middle of that book about how I um, harvested all of these old Dyson vacuum cleaners and built a machine of sort of this makeshift homemade rocket in the backyard. And there goes the puppy. And so and then tried to launch myself into, maybe not space, but up into the atmosphere at least, and it didn't go well. um and so, right, so that sort of sprinkled in, and I received a lot of feedback when I wrote my first story, and a lot of people said, I really like that fiction story that you wrote about the Dyson vacuum cleaners and trying to make them into a rocket ship. Because I wrote, there are sort of parts lists in that book of things that you would possibly need to build said rocket. And so sort of I got some feedback from readers who were like, that was really interesting, and write some more fiction. And so when Men of War was sort of an accident. As I was working on Opera Andy, I just had ideas to write down. And Opera Andy was a long process, and I had some time to write some more stories. And so some of them just turned out to be fiction, and they're kind of all over the place. I sort of, one of my little blurbs says, there's a joke in there that I don't understand. Why drinking and surfing the internet doesn't mix. What rich people do in their spare time. There are all sorts of stories. There's a story that made my daughter sad about a toy from when I was a child that I set free into the world to never see again. And so she thought that was a little bit of a sad story. But
Oh,
but
I
yeah,
think
I mean,
people really need to check out these other books. I think they're fantastic. And
thank you.
you've read already from Men of War for us, and,
Mhm.
and I'm looking forward to you coming back to reading for Journey to the Middle. So
I will. I
I
will.
would love that. Thank you so much for your time today, and I really appreciate the reading. I love
Yeah,
this story. I bought it for my nephew. It's such a great story. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on the program again.
no problem. Thanks, Diana.